We're live.
Hooray!
We did it. Step one. Exactly.
Success. I love it.
Yes. Welcome, everyone, if you're watching us. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds for LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, where we're on all three, to capture us and get us going and recognize that we're here, notify people. So as we're getting started, why don't we do some introductions and then we'll jump into our discussion about getting uncomfortable. So I'm Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm a leadership coach for the people who support the people at work and often then forget about themselves. And with me today is Selena Reames. Selena, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So thank you for that, Lauren. Again, my name is Selena Reames, and I'm what I call an executive life coach. So I work with executives, usually people who are in the mission-driven space, who are wanting to create impact in the world. And usually what's happened is they have kind of hit their max on what they've been able to create in their current operating system. And oftentimes they've done amazing things, but they realize to get where they want to go next, they actually have to reinvent their operating system. So it's such a pleasure to be here with you, Lauren.
Thank you. And what you described just now was me. It's such a pleasure to be talking to you today, like in this capacity and in this phase of our relationship, because you started as my coach.
Yes.
And when we talked about what we were going to talk about today, there was so much intermingling of the things we talked about when you were my coach, the things that you've shared with me in our friendship and in other places that we've interacted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think back to when we started working together, and my comfort with discomfort was so small.
Yeah.
And I had created an uncomfortable, comfortable life.
Yeah.
But it's what I knew. And so when I remember in our first conversation, you asked me about boundaries. And I said, well, one of my boundaries is that I work 80 to 100 hours a week. And that's not changeable. That's like part of the deal.
That was a non-negotiable.
That was a total non-negotiable because that's what I was comfortable with.
Yeah.
It's also why I came to you because I didn't want to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And the good coach that you are, you said, okay, because you met me where I was starting from. Mm-hmm. And what came to light so quickly was I wasn't comfortable with that. It's just what I knew.
Yeah. I think what you're making there is that valuable distinction between comfortable and familiar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that and help us define that?
Right. And it's our human nature to be, I have a little echo over here. It's our human nature to be attached to what's familiar. And this can, what's familiar can have a whole span of expressions. It can be completely dysfunctional. and all of us have something that's probably a little less than functional, right? That maybe less than we'd like to admit. But it's so familiar that we cling to it. We are creatures that like to know what's coming. We like the predictable. We liked to, like we got to see how uncomfortable this has been in the last year and a half to not know, right? So we like to have that sense of, and I call it a sense in air quotes of security, by knowing even if it sucks, at least we know what to expect.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
When sucking is familiar, it feels like comfort.
That should be the title of something.
We've just created a talk show.
I see that for us. Yeah. And I know, so say a little bit more, because I know your story, Lauren, and you're such an incredible storyteller. Your story is so probably will speak to a lot of others too.
Yeah. So, and again, when we started working together, it was because I wanted to add tools to my kit. I was already coaching in a lot of different capacities, not the way that you were. And I was interested in finding out what the path was to get to what you were doing. So I could add it to my bucket of stuff. And it was during our conversation where I realized I need you in my life as coach to really help me decide right? And this wasn't just about like, oh, let me go a little bit outside my box
Right.
and find a new skill. This was, I had this like underlying want for this life that I'm creating now. And I had no idea because I was wrapped so tightly and familiar
Mm-hmm.
in what I knew, in how I knew to be and do and get through my days and react to what was coming to me. I didn't even have an idea what was different. So part of getting uncomfortable for me
Mm-hmm.
was understanding what uncomfortable even meant.
Mm.
Right. And understand that distinction that you just made between comfortable and familiar. And then deciding what I was willing to test.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit. I think you see a lot of people who start out where I start out, right? In this sort of cycle of like, I just do things because I do things and that's what I'm supposed to do. And I've
Mm-hmm.
become an executive. So I've already made this decision
Yeah.
about who I am and what I do.
Right. And I think, I think what you're pointing to is a really important component of this. And it's the component of it being locked in as our identity. When we get, think about when you drive, if you drive somewhere every day, like, when a lot of us used to drive to work every day, you get in your car, it becomes automatic and you can kind of almost get there and not even remember the drive, right?
Mm.
It's so programmed. It's so automated for you. And it just becomes locked in as this is just what I do. It's not even a conscious thought anymore. And so one of the things I see is, and we can even look at how this works in the brain. So when we do things repeatedly, so we do our routine, we get up, we do our morning routine, we go to work, come back, repeat, rinse, repeat, right? When we do that same thing over and over, those neural grooves get deeper and deeper and deeper. And what happens is all of our attention goes to that. And these other parts of our brain start to kind of atrophy. So I love to look at this from different perspectives. So from the neuroplastic way, it's like all these other parts like are more creative or adventurous, or the things that have us think outside of those repetitive, loops that we're in. They start to atrophy a little because we're not actually engaging them. Right. So it's beautiful to think about this, like creating discomfort intentionally or stepping outside of our routine as access to other parts of our brain. We're actually get to build other neural connections. So yes. I geek out on the neuroscience stuff sometimes, but
I love it.
Yeah. So we get stuck in those limiting patterns and we get stuck in those loops. And to your point, our life starts to become very predictable, and we start to not see outside of those blinders. Like, this is just my life. This is the way it is. I've chosen this role, identity, title, and we often have several of them that we identify as, and that's locked in, and that becomes our identity. And so our world becomes actually pretty small.
Yeah. It's, I almost have this metaphor in my brain of brushing your teeth, right? It's this automatic thing. There's no reason to change it. Your teeth are staying healthy if you're brushing them. You don't even think about it. The minute you finish brushing your teeth, you don't think about it unless you drink orange juice, and then you're sort of shocked by it. But it just goes on because that's what you do. And you do that because that's what you've chosen to do. That's part of your chosen routine. And it seems crazy that expands all the way into our entire lives.
I know.
And it's successful, right? Like, I didn't come to you when we started working together with this, like, I'm not a success. I can't make anything work. Everything worked. I had the routine. I was brushing my teeth every day. Harder and harder. Right. And you said it, we create these roles for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the VP of HR. That's what I did.
Yeah.
And that's what I knew. I was totally successful at it.
Yeah, and you're darn good at it.
About anything else was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I almost was in this place where I was like, I want to make this work. I want things to be different, but I don't want to get uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah, but I don't want to have to change anything. So, so let me know how I can do that, Selena.
Yeah. I want everything to be better, but nothing to be different. Go.
Yeah. Here we go.
So why get uncomfortable? Why bother?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll just look to my own life, really, and I have the pleasure of getting to work with some incredible humans. But I think as coaches, our own lives, we have to be doing and living into our own experience of these things to really be a powerful coach and to partner with others. So I want to look to my own life. And one of the spaces where I've gotten really, this is active right now. This is a current one. So one of the places that I've gotten really complacent, because that's another thing that happens with the familiar and staying in the grooves. We can become complacent because we can start to do those things in our sleep. And I just want to bring this metaphor. We love a good metaphor. It's kind of like we get really good. If you think of a piano keyboard, it has about 88 keys. It's like we get really good at playing the middle, like 15 to 20 keys. And it's like you were talking about in your point as an HR director, like you're really good, Lauren, at playing those 20 keys, or maybe even 30, right? Playing across that part of the keyboard. But it's like, this stepping outside of our comfort zone allows us access to the full keyboard, allows us to play in all 88 keys of our life, of our being, of the full expression of what we get as humans. It's like, we're not meant to live in this super limited, tiny little container of life, like, right? I mean, you can, and many of us do, but it's just so small. Like, why would you if you knew there was something else available? But that's the other thing, is like, we forget that there are other things available when we've deepened those grooves so hard.
Yes.
So stepping out and creating, like, even just creating, this is where we start, is often just creating like a toe touch, like do something that's just a little uncomfortable, or do something that just disrupts your routine a tiny bit, like brush your teeth with the other hand. Like right? It seems silly, but it's about disrupting that predictable, that automatic groove that gets so deepened. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I was going to bring it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just heard you talk about being. And
yeah.
I love talking about being. I did not love talking about being when I first started talking about being. I didn't quite understand it. Tell me, and then I'll tell you my experience with it, but tell me about your experience with being and coming into being, and how being plays into all the stuff we do.
Yeah. My experience of being, and I'm sure you'll have a great metaphor for it, Lauren, because you're great at that, but we'll come up with one if not, because it is sort of a little bit more of an abstract concept to people, this idea of being versus doing. And I'm not suggesting we stop doing anything in our life and just sit in navel gaze, though that could be fun too, a little meditating, but this idea of being is who we are behind the actions we take. And I always, again, in my own life, when there's things going on, or if I have something I want to intend to show up a certain way, or I want it to go a certain way, have a certain experience, I'm going to really be coming into, who do I want to be in this situation before I even choose what I do? Because the action is going to come from the setup that I create in my mentality. Do I want to be loving? Do I want to be compassionate? Do I want to have empathy, in a difficult conversation? And, I can think of a conversation with my ex-mother-in-law. We have an incredible commonality, and we both love dearly my daughter, and she's been an incredible force in her life. But there have been times in years past, not so much now we do it really well together, where there was a lot of friction. We were just very different. And I remember having to go into this one conversation with her where we had a little fight. I could probably name on one hand all the fights I've had like that in my whole life. But we had this one, and we both had sort of like lost our rational thought in this argument. And we were coming back to have this dinner. It was beautiful because we knew the repair was needed because we were so committed to this relationship with my daughter. And I said to my daughter, I said, how do I want to feel? How do I want all of us to feel at the end of this conversation? And I knew in that specific example, and we can use this anywhere, whether it's at work, in our personal life, I knew in that specific example, I wanted us to feel connected. I wanted us to all feel heard and respected. I wanted us to all feel uplifted, and to remove that division and the irrational thoughts we had both gone into, and the unplanned actions. So it's really, we can use it to set the course of what we want to create in our lives. It's a powerful tool.
Yes, absolutely.
What's your experience of it, Lauren? Because I know this was not always a familiar or conversation. What are you talking about, Selena?
Yes, there was a lot of, what are you talking about? What does that mean? I don't understand. So I have what I think is a pretty simple metaphor, and it's eggs. So if you and I are both walking into our kitchens in the morning, and let's say you absolutely love to cook and I absolutely hate to cook, right? That's the baseline of our being, right?
Got it.
You walk into the kitchen and you open your refrigerator and you see that you have eggs. And you say, I have eggs. I can scramble them, I can fry them, I can hard boil them, I can eat them raw if I want to.
Nice.
And I walk into my kitchen and I see I have eggs. And I think, ugh, all I have is eggs. Mm-hmm. So for you, having eggs was an elevating experience, was joy and pleasure and delight. Mm-hmm. For me, having eggs was like a defeat and made me feel miserable and feel a little sorry for myself. Mm-hmm. So here I am being like in the muck and being the victim, feeling attacked for only having eggs. And you like have just made your own day by having eggs. And so it's a simple metaphor, but it applies everywhere. Yeah. You know, I can approach my work thinking, this is never going to work. My business is never going to grow. Yeah. It's the size it's going to be. And I can make a decision that I want to be small. Yeah. I can also decide in my business or at work or with family or with friends or in any capacity, I want this to be huge and feel amazing. I want to be filled with gratitude for the things I've gotten, filled with gratitude for the things that are going to come. Yeah. And the way that we are being about something has a huge impact on the doing. Yeah. You can do anything. Yeah. There's no limit to what you can do. Mm-hmm. And you've had all different kinds of work experiences. I've had all different kinds of work experiences. Mm-hmm. And anything that's been thrown at us or that we've chosen, we've done it. Mm-hmm. And we've succeeded. We're two very successful people. Congratulations to us.
Right.
When I was in my last job, mm-hmm. and when I started working 80 to 100 hours a week, I was being excited. I was getting to use my smarts. I was building something from scratch. Wow. When I got towards the end of that job, I was dragging myself in. Yeah. I was a martyr a little bit. Yeah. I felt a heavy sense of responsibility. And so my being shifted while I was there. Mm-hmm. And so I had to get out of that familiar to decide who I wanted to be instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that depth that you had to tap into.
Yeah.
I think so many times we step into pathways and like I said, we can do incredible things in them. There's nothing wrong with them. But it's like often we step into these pathways that are conditioned from, teachings outside of us that are, this is what it looks like to be successful. These are the markers. These are the things to step into. These are the boxes to check. And I think so many of us kind of get to, like I said, like we get to the upper limit of that operating system. And while we've done some amazing things along the way, we kind of start to realize something needs to shift if we want to keep going and step into even more fulfillment, even more meaning, even more joy, even in our lives.
So how do you do that? What's been your experience of stepping out of comfort, stepping out of familiar, and stepping into whatever change you wanted to create?
Yeah. So, well, let's create this conversation together, Lauren, because I also want to hear like how that's been for you, because I know you've been in that process. But I'll start with saying what I see. I think, and this is sort of a map of how we create change in our lives. And I'm not talking about just like changing, the externals, but like creating that true shift inside that allows all the externals to fall into place more in alignment with who we are. And the first step is recognizing like that something is uncomfortable, like something isn't working. Because if it's all working, like you said, like at the beginning of that position, it was all working. You were excited, like happy to spend 80 to 100 hours or however many hours you were spending. I don't know if you were spending that many at the beginning, but like we can do the same thing from this really empowered place. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to spend 100 hours on this. And we can be doing the same amount of hours and be like, oh, this is exhausting. It's depleting my health, my mental wellness, So the first thing is to choose and see like what is not in alignment, what's not working, what's got our gut like uncomfortable, like something's amiss right now.
Mm.
Something has to change. And I'll use a specific example. I was diving into this morning, actually. I was diving into like just all my finances, my investments and things like that. And it's something, like it's fine, but for some reason I've just been resisting. It's like, I don't even want to look, and it's like some story I had set up in my head that it's like scary in there. And it's of course never is like the way we think it is in our head. And so I got in there and looking at it, I was like, oh, this is not so bad. But that resistance had been lingering for a while. I'd been avoiding it. So we could see the behaviors. And so the first step is to just really see like where we're out of alignment.
Mm.
Like something's not working. Like when you reached out to have a coach, when you reached out to me, even though you wouldn't consciously have said, or known what it is exactly you wanted, you knew there was something else available for you. Is that landing? Is that right?
Yeah, it totally lands. It's it strikes me too that as people who are able to recognize that when something's out of alignment, we also think we should be able to fix it.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So this misalignment feels even worse to discover because then we put the pressure on ourselves to get there ourselves.
Thank you for
that.
And
we think, I'm smart. I've taken on extra projects. I help other people with all of these things. Why is this so hard for me? Why can't I figure out me?
Yeah.
And for me, the answer was I was never going to figure out me because I was so embroiled in everybody else's stuff, right? Including clients who I was serving well, and internal clients, people who I helped with job search and job strategy and all of that kind of stuff. I was doing great work for them.
Yeah.
And I was too busy and too inside of my own stuff to begin to see what could change. So my resistance was looking at me.
Yeah.
And that was the opportunity that I really got with you, was to sit with myself.
Yeah.
And
I love how you came in thinking like it was going to be some tools for you to use with your clients. Yeah. Another thing for out there for taking care of them. And really the shift or the opportunity, it sounds like, was really going inside. And I think as people who work in the service industry, and this can be HR, coaching, therapists, all the people who are really taking care of other humans, as you put it, it's one of the pitfalls to watch out for. And I know there have been times, I love how you named that, Lauren. There's so many times in this world and in my life where I've like, I should be able to figure this out. I help people with this. I support people in this. Like I'm getting amazing results with my clients. Like I should be able to do this. And the fact of the matter is, even the most skillful people, we can't always bring that lens to ourselves. This is why getting support, this is why leaning into whatever it is that supports you, as a coach or a great therapist, or, like different people for different phases of life and different goals. But this is why even the brightest, even the people helping the most with others, like really benefit from that outside lens. We just can't see our own stuff alone often. We just can't. And I, am continuously like, have to reach out to my network to, I have a lot of tools. Like we get a lot of tools, and we can do some things with ourselves. But in the end, it's like that lens, that outside lens, we just can't be objective in our own lives.
Yeah. And if we're asked the right questions, we can still explore.
Yeah.
So as coach, my job is never, your job was never to say, okay, here's what you're going to do. Never. Right. These 6 activities. And then next time we meet, we'll review them and score them. And it's really to get you to be objective and then to dream.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just the activities of changing. It's also giving yourself the time and headspace and face time with yourself to like be with you.
Yeah.
And answer those questions and think about like, who do you want to be? How do you want to show up?
Yeah.
And find the gaps and then address them, which is like the next level of discomfort, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, that's getting really honest and being really able to really really see clearly like how you've been operating.
Yeah.
What, like you said, to speak to what these gaps are, like what is actually in the way of you moving from this space to the space you want to be in. And then
Yeah.
that's often what we spend time coaching around. It's like, how do I want to unfold that? And I think curiosity is one of the biggest, curiosity and imagination, I think, are some of the biggest gifts that we can bring to this work of creating something else in our lives, of being willing to get uncomfortable, and having that scientific adventurous experiment, like, let me look around this corner. Okay, let me be willing to look here. And, having a great partner or coach, who can hold that with you,
Yes.
who you want to do that work with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The curiosity piece felt very new to me when I stepped into this.
Yeah.
And really being willing to look all the way into what could be without adding the word but.
Yes, without
Right.
adding that, like, that judgmental, like, harsh sort of inner critic, like, you can never do that. No
Right.
way. Like, that's different than what you have now. But
Yeah.
that's where we open up and we start to step outside of that, just that predictable loop, because our brains will just keep recreating what we have if we just let it
Yes.
go on autopilot. So that's where we start to step out of that predictable loop and say, like, oh, there's actually infinite possibility available in this life. Like, how amazing.
Yeah.
And we can actually step out and create something more intentionally than perhaps we have, or whatever we want to intentionally create in this next chapter.
And we don't have to do it all at once.
Yeah, thank goodness.
That's, I think, part of that fear cycle.
Yeah.
Was, is if I say it out loud, what I'm actually dreaming of.
Yeah.
If I give myself the time to really think about what I'm dreaming of, it just seems too far away. I don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
So, how do you get started?
How did you get started, Lauren?
I got started with 15 minutes.
Nice.
I was lost in my day. I would get out of bed. I would pick up my phone as I was getting out of bed. Start responding to the easy emails. I looked at the same emails over and over because I would do the easy ones and then I'd come back and see the same ones I'd skipped over the first time. Second level of easy, right? And go through my whole day. And then it would be night and I would be tired. And I got to the point where I wanted to be doing one thing differently. One thing differently every day.
Yeah.
And I remember having this conversation with you where I said, like, I'm just too tired. If I'm working a 15-hour day, I'm just too tired at the end of the day. And my middle of my day was unpredictable because I didn't take any control over it. And so I didn't think I could take a break consistently during lunch or, in the afternoon. And you said, what about the morning? And I was like, yeah, morning's And I committed to 15 minutes a day.
That's right.
Where when I got up, I didn't check my phone for 15 minutes. And instead, I picked up a book because I needed to replace that with something to get started.
Yes.
And then I just got so hungry for it. I just wanted more time and more time.
Yeah.
And so for me, the proof of concept that the world didn't explode when I didn't check my email for 15 minutes at 7 o'clock in the morning was great. I extended that to a half hour. Great. Right. And that was the very beginning of boundary setting.
Yeah.
Boundaries, by the way, that nobody cared about except me.
Right.
Nobody freaked out when I didn't check my email from 7 to 7:30 in the
morning. It's amazing, right?
It's amazing. Yeah.
Shocker.
And from there, having that confidence that I could make a change.
Yeah.
And sustain it. Yeah. Really was powerful. Nice. Yeah. And led me to others.
Yeah.
How about you? What's been your experience with how you embrace change?
I think it's, I tend to be, I'm more of a, like, let's jump in. Yeah. And it's not, it depends on your temperament, your how your disposition is created. But I know, to your point, Lauren, I think what's more sustainable over time is to create these small, and we know from the science of habit change and everything, is create these small, they even say like 1 minute, do something, pick 1 minute and just do something different in that 1 minute. and to let it be small and build that over change. Like I know with meditation, so I'll talk to people if they're talking about picking up a practice. It's like, don't worry about fitting in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Start with even a 1-minute meditation and try to create that habit every day, just like you talked about, and build the habit, build the momentum of it. And then you can start adding on to it if you like, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Before you know it, you could have a 15-minute meditation a day, and now you're meeting all these check marks for the science of the benefits of meditation if you meditate 12 minutes a day, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I do think that building those things, and it's the repetition, because that's how we create new habits. And if we can just be in that, and if we fall off, we get back on, and we just bring that kindness to ourselves too, right? So not to weaponize it if we fall off of our new habit. But I know we're wrapping up here, but I want to. I know we're wanting to leave people with something to take from this, and Lauren, I'll let you do the strategic, the actionable, and I think you've already started pointing to it. But I want to just share that there's a time when I worked with people in hospice a fair bit, and one of the things, and you may have heard this, one of the things that consistently, hands down, people would say at the end of their life, their biggest regret was not trying things that they wanted to try, not doing the things they always wanted to do, whether it was writing that book or, going on that trip or riding horseback down the beach, whatever it was, or falling in love with that person that loved them and they always kept them out. So it's like, just think about that. Think about, like, what is it you want? I want to get to the end of my life and just celebrate that I lived full out. I made mistakes and I fell down. Of course, we're going to. That's part of it. But to not get to the end and say, I lived a small, limited life, and it was very predictable. Like, that's not what I want. So consider, if you're listening, like, consider what it is you want to get to the end of this life and be able to feel, and be able to really feel in your body and your heart. And I'll let Lauren leave us with a little bit of an actionable to take from this.
Thank you, Selena. That's beautiful. And I love that sentiment of being able to look back and know that you've tried things. And given yourself the opportunity. And what I see as the opportunity is choice. And the word choice just always comes up for me over and over. Yeah. We are full of choices all day long, and no choice is a choice, right? Not making a choice is a choice. Totally. So my call to action today for anybody who's watching and engaged in this is to make one choice. Doesn't have to be a big choice. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 1 minute. But make a choice that's going to bring you towards that goal in life, to look back and say, I did it. I tried everything. And tell us in the comments how you made that change, and whether it's helped you, or reach out to one of us. But my life's purpose is to help people understand that they have the capacity for choice, and that they don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, I hear that belonging and that sense of agency being returned to people's lives.
Yes,
and I think it's an incredibly critical time in the world right now. We live in this amazing, chaotic time, and the things that we choose or don't choose, which is also a choice, as you said, have a huge impact. They have a huge impact on our lives, but also on that generational expansion, that lineage, the children that come after us and after us. So, if you're thinking about like this, like, little choice, not to let that overwhelm you, but like, what is one thing that actually brings you more into alignment with yourself, more into harmony with, perhaps the world around you, more into, into this space where your heart sings.
Yes.
And joy is available.
Yes.
Like, I think sometimes we think life is supposed to be hard or has to be hard. And that's also a context, and it's also a choice. And to know that there's choice outside of that, your life, even though things happen, it's not like we get away from challenging things in our lives. But even with that, we have the choice to have this more expanded life, to really step into creating joy, to create the container of gratitude.
Yes.
And set our being, as you were speaking to earlier, like, who do we want to be? Who do we want to be, regardless of what's going on around us, regardless of what other people are doing? Who do we want to be, and how do we want to show up? And that creates a ripple impact around us. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Selena, I could talk to you all day.
I know. It's fun. It's fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with me today.
Yeah.
Before we close, tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, you can find me if you're in LinkedIn here, right through my LinkedIn profile, but on other platforms, I have a link tree, and you can find links to, if you want to dive into some of the stuff I'm doing, just kind of see where things are. You can find me through that link tree link. Yep.
Great.
How about you,
Awesome.
Lauren?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.